Hello everyone. I don't know if you can hear me clearly. I think sound is fine, right? Yeah. Hello everyone. First of all, thank you so much for having me. It is an honor every time to speak to such brilliant young minds in one place. So today my talk is about delivering stories that matter. And before we get to this talk, I want to say as artists, we come here and we talk and talk and talk. We try to inspire as much as we can to people. But one takeaway in my experience that I've realized is whenever you're talking to people, you also need to understand the person who's listening needs to take in the information that they think is the most relatable to them. Because an artist cannot tell you what you're supposed to do and what you should do. They can share their experiences, and the person who is listening to that experience can decide what information can they take out of it. So every time, regardless whether it's me being over here or you guys in future or anyone, it really depends what information can you take out of it and what information can you think is most relatable and most powerful. So when we talk about stories and delivering stories, we often associate storytelling to journalism, filmmaking, marketing and advertising, corporate industries, because these are all stories. But the stories that I want to talk about are stories that actually can change the way we see world, or stories that can impact the world we live in today. And that's the message. So a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Lahore, Pakistan, and I came to Qatar 7 years ago for Northwestern University. Living in Pakistan it's an abundance. It's literally a place where there's so many stories and so many stories worth telling. But unfortunately, we only get to see stories that the media wants to publicize. And that's the idea behind that I adopted to choosing filmmaking as a source of delivering stories that actually matter. Because of the image that the country was tainted in and because of the society that I was born into and the stories that I saw around me, and I realized that why are we labeling this whole society by 1 or 2% of the stories or 2% of the things that are coming out? Why not the rest 98%? Why not the good sides? Why not the people who have spent so much time and effort in creating revolutionary things? Why don't we talk about them? Why don't we talk about the women who are leading industries and playing football in Chitral and breaking boundaries of going to different places? Why not talk about them? Why talk about one specific topic? So I'm going to talk about my experience with you all, just like how one person would have a conversation with another. And that's the whole point of me being over here and talking to you all. So I'm going to talk about on 3 things here. And those 3 things I'm going to talk to you through my own experience. First is telling a story regardless of the risks. We all know whenever we tell stories, there are always consequences to it. Whether a story can succeed, whether it can fail, it works or it doesn't work, that aspect of it. Second is failure, which is a part of everything. And the third is believing in yourselves. So on to the first point. Developing stories and responsibility of telling stories that actually matter. So when I was in high school, just like all of you guys right now, there were always topics that were very close to my heart. Topics that I see in media and I see on television, I see on websites. It just made me realize that the world is not seeing my country or my society in such a way that it should be. But at the same time, my society and my country is not talking about these issues. So how do we solve them? Like, you know how, for example, Sana, you said like opportunity, there was a barrier in between and you. If you don't connect them together, how will you get that? You'll still remain you. The opportunity will still be there, right? So in this case scenario, it was like, if we don't talk about certain topics, be that social issue topics, be that taboo topics, we will never be able to get to a resolution. We will never be able to make a reform. So when I was in high school, I was always passionate about topics about like how do we address extremism. And again, at that time, I'm 16 years old. I'm thinking about like solving a world crisis where our, prime ministers and everyone are going to the UN, UNGA, that drama is happening, and we're just like, laughing about it and debating on certain things. So how is this 16-year-old going to even change the world? And specifically through films. And keeping in mind the society that we all come from, entertainment sells for films. It's not, no, people rarely go to cinemas to watch social issue based films or psychological thrillers. They go for pure entertainment. But yet there was a part of me that really said that visual storytelling can actually influence societies because it can spark dialogues and debates. And that is the reason why I chose media and I came to Northwestern. So when I got to Northwestern, I saw the diversity in people. I saw that there were a lot of ideas coming in from so many different parts of the world. And I felt a place where I wanted to get the resources to make a film on social issues, but primarily on how do we address extremism, specifically to a religion. So because my religion was tainted with this image of extremism, I wanted to make a film on that. So I thought, okay, let's make a film on how do we deal with tackling suicide bombing and extremism. How do we take into consideration this such a sensitive topic, keeping in mind I'm in the Middle East, and back in Pakistan as well, this topic is really talked about. So why should I even think about talking? Because amount of consequences that I will have are insane. On one side, my parents are like, okay, you know what, don't talk about it. Because of course, as parents, you're scared that your children might get into trouble. As teachers and as mentors, you would be like, okay, let's just stay away from the taboo, but let's discuss it in classrooms, but not in the media. So it was all like so many different thoughts were coming into my mind. I'm like, should I talk about these topics myself? But that was the point where I was like, in the university, that I really want to do something with my life and specifically on social issues. So two friends got together. One is sitting right over here. And we got together and we were like, okay, let's create an idea about how we can address the process of how suicide bombers are made rather than just focusing on, hey, the X person did Y, that resulted in Z. So we wrote down, we sat down, we wrote a script. We wrote a script, again, draft after draft after draft after draft. We kept on writing. When we finally wrote the script that we were happy about, we wanted to apply for a grant, which was the Studio 20Q grant. It's one of the grants that Northwestern gives like $7,000 for us to create. So when we were coming up with the grant or coming up with the pitch for the grant, we went to the judges and we pitched our idea. When we pitched our idea, we told them how we wanted this film to be. And literally, as soon as we were telling our idea that this film is going to be religious, this film is going to be social issue based, you could see the judges looking at you and then suddenly their mood changing. So you're sitting in a room full of jury members and you're trying to tell them that you want to tell a story that actually matters in the world today. And they're looking at you and they're like, I'm pretty sure if I could read minds at that moment, it was like they were looking at us and they were like, how are these kids going to make such a film? And why should the university even pay such an amount for them to make a social issue film? Nevertheless, we pitched, we told them our idea, this is what we wanted to make, and we walked out. Patiently waited 2 days for it. When we got the decision, we realized that we had not been selected and there was no grant, that we would not be able to get the grant to make the film. And one of the comments I still remember till now was that the director is not competent enough to make such a film. So the willpower that I had, that I wanted to tell a story that actually mattered and probably might have made a difference, and then I failed because the people who were on the panel did not believe in my idea. So we both were like, what should we do now? Should we continuously try again and again and again and again and somehow make them believe that our idea is good enough for them? Or is it not good enough for them, but we should make it for ourselves because we believe in it? So that debate went on, and we went back to the drawing table again and again and again. Literally, we pitched the idea, evolved the idea, and pitched it 10 times. Until there came a point where we literally told them, listen, let's cut this chase. Like, this is enough. I've had like 10 drafts submitted to you. You don't want to accept my idea because you think that this is a religious topic. Are you censoring the media right now? Are you censoring freedom of speech? Or do you really think that we cannot deliver it. So eventually, I think they were really sick and tired of me because I kept on reworking the idea and sending it to them and saying like, guys, accept it. So in the end, I was like, listen, if you can't accept it, that's fine. No hard feelings. I'll work 5 to 10 student jobs if I have to, but I will make it happen. And then the next day, I get a call from the jury member, and they were like, it's because of your persistent nature of always calling us, sending us drafts, that we would like to give you a grant. In my mind, I was like, maybe they were sick and tired of me, so they just were like, hey, here you go, just make it, whatever. So I got that grant. We went back to the drawing table again. We worked hard and hard and hard because we realized that because of our persistence, we had gotten this grant to actually make the film that we really thought that we could do. So in this point, at first I realized that there were a lot of failures to do, and then we got to make this grant, and now because this was such a religious extremism topic, we couldn't find actors. Every guy I go to and I'm like, hey, can you play a role of a bearded, Maulana for extremism? And you see that guy wants to slap me. And I'm just like, okay, shit, what am I going to do now? So this guy's going to probably smack me across and report me to the authorities, and I'm in Qatar and something's going to happen. But nevertheless, we felt through failures and failures and failures. We got through the biggest obstacles that we even didn't realize that we would get. But in the end, we pushed through because we had that part in us, which was in the past 5 years that we thought that regardless whether it's a sensitive topic, whether it's a taboo, if we want to make something, no one should stop us from making it. And one thing that I realized in that process was if people don't believe in your idea, you make them believe. So we went ahead, we made a film, and we screened it everywhere. We screened it in film festivals in Miami, in Chicago. The process of the film went really well. We were really happy. And then in August of 2016, one day, I graduated from college and I went back to Pakistan, unemployed, because the job market was really bad. I don't know if it's as good now, but it was really bad at that time. And I realized that okay, I failed again because I made a film that mattered, but no one really spoke about it. That film went to film festivals and then came back and did nothing. So how did I develop a story or deliver a story that actually mattered? So then, right then and there, I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do. Or maybe should I work on another film? Should I go in a corporate world? Where should I go? And it was, I remember it was 2nd of August. On the 1st, I was like, okay, you know what? I should start now applying for jobs because I'm probably not going to get big with films. So on the 2nd of August, I remember I woke up to 1,000 notifications, so many messages, so many social media tags, and that's the moment I realized that that film that failed 10 times, that was rejected 10 times, the process of making it was really hard, got into the Oscars. That was the pivotal point where I realized that maybe, yes, we have delivered a story that mattered. And I'm going to quickly tell you one more aspect of how I really liked the process of what happened and what I got out of it. I didn't win, but that wasn't the point. The point was one interview I still remember. It was CNN. CNN interviewed me right after I got nominated, and the questions they asked me, I do not wish that on anyone at the moment. It was the toughest interview that I've ever been through, and it was I still remember one question because I want to share that with you guys. It was so Shahnawaz Zali, why did you make this film? And I'm like, it's a naive, 23-year-old saying, oh, I made this film so I can change the stereotypical image that Pakistanis have. He's like, and he looks at me, because it was a Skype interview, it wasn't live, it was going to be edited, and he looks at me, he's like, you want to change an image of extremism by making a film on extremism. How are you going to change that? And I had to answer in a split second, so I was like, if you watch my film, you realize that it is not showing the extremism, but it's showing the other flip side. It's showing how people view us, but how different it is inside. So when you see the film, I want people to know the fact that don't judge a book by its cover. So you see the cover, you see this image, but when you go in the back, you'll see everything else. So by having these interviews, and that interview went live, people reached out to me, We started talking about discussions and debates. I went through CNN and like it was all over Pakistan. People were actively discussing and debating the film's topic on the thread. And that is the moment I realized that I had achieved something, that we had achieved something. It wasn't about winning. It was about people, getting the people to talk. That was the goal. And at that point I realized that, okay, yes, we have achieved it. It's not about fame, it's not about anything, it's about getting people to talk. So 2 lessons from this is like failure is going to be a part of us, always, and we just have to rise above it. And second is be always persistent and adamant of how to get your story out. So before I go to like the point of like believing in ourselves, I want us to really think about these 2 topics whenever you're delivering a story that actually matters. Even if it's a story that is needed at the moment, or you yourself are the story. Because we need to deliver both of them simultaneously together. So, bless you. Last thing, and last point is believing in ourselves. So, by sharing this experience, I feel closer to each and every one because there's a part of me that I'm telling you guys about. And that believing in yourself was, what I learned out of it was, look around you. All of you guys. Let's just assume that one person comes up with an idea, but 99% of the people don't like the idea. But there is that 1% who does. I would say go with that 1%. Because it's that 1% that is somewhere out there who actually does believe in you. So make it for the 1%, because if you start making it for the 99%, you'll be the 1% who has their idea completely transformed. So listen to yourself, make that idea that you are so passionately serious about. So the third point is believing in ourselves regardless what the obstacles are. And that's what I want you guys to focus on. Specifically on the point of where do you see yourself in the next 10 or 20 years, and how can you believe in yourselves to come up with ideas and deliver the stories that actually matter. So in 20 years down the line, you can have your own story that you can share with countless number of people, because at that time you will realize that you guys are your own story. And that was my whole point. So thank you so much and take care.